I'm going to do a quick vlog today, campers, on power. When you feel thwarted, or when you're a victim of narcissistic abuse, how do you deal with it? So I've been dealing with my whole life. I had a mother who was a narcissist. She was a little working class woman, not super bright, worked in the local factory, but yet she behaved like she was the CEO of Apple and looked like Sharon Stone and gave off this grandiose air. I was her adoptive child, so she used to say how sad she was that she couldn't have children, to me, more or less every day. I'm guessing her own child would have been the golden child. So that's why I don't agree with adoption. Absolutely against it. So I've experienced this narcissism. She was pretty bad. She was violent, as well as telling me each day that I was worthless. So I had to cope with this narcissistic abuse. And when you tolerate it as a child, you tend to have a wound, and the wound attracts other narcissists to you, whereas other people, they seem to have a shield that bounces it away, and they seem to go through life having a pretty charmed life without these narcissist individuals among us pecking at them or getting near them. But if you've been wounded by one, then other narcissists not only are drawn towards you, they smell the wound, but they try and suck the blood out of it, but they also know where to bite you. I was very interested, and I'm going to go on to say how to deal with it, but just I'm going to briefly go over my story and what's going on recently. I had help hacked off against the press. They turned on me. I've no idea. Well, I have an idea why. It's almost like, oh, you're a woman, you've helped us, but women, so we want to look bigger and better than you. So we're just going to shove you with your face in the dirt. Then we're going to tell the story our way, and we're going to say we investigated you to find out everything that you've told us. So this is the way they've cracked on, and I see why they've done it. They want to get the Mail. The Mail were different to every other newspaper, which makes them hard to get at for this compensation gravy train. So the only way they can do it is by demonizing me, and they've done such an ugly way. They've told Baroness Lawrence a pack of lies about me, about who I am. I'm a rape victim. I'm a known victim of crime, horrifically. And they've just lied about who I am. I hope one day I can sit down with Baroness Lawrence and show her who I am. Maybe that will happen. Maybe I'll be lucky enough for that to happen. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, I'm very upset about that. I'm very upset about being misconstrued to other people. My mother, Sharon Stone, my mother, because she didn't like it that my father was into me, she knew about the sexual abuse. Her reaction was it not to leave him to protect me, but to be jealous of me, like I was a sexual competitor at age 6. I'm just remind you of that. So she told the whole neighborhood. She used to beat me with a cane, tell me I was evil, a temptress, just to call me Jezebel. I obviously thought it was a pet name. I heard sometimes other people saying you can't call her that. I wondered why. Never mind. I also acted out the whore role as I got older. I let men use me. My mother told the neighbourhood that I was evil. I acted out that role by writing to the Moors murderer Ian Brady, also an adoptee, also called evil, to try and prove that he wasn't evil. Actually, I was projecting the whole wound onto somebody else to try to tell the world that he was actually not actually evil. It was his adoptive parents. This is probably the truth, looking back and knowing more about psychology. This is no doubt the truth. I read a eye-wateringly ignorant report by Alan Keithley, is it? Who completely lied about me, that I didn't interact with Brady for 2 hours on the last visit. There was 3 visits with Brady. The last one was over the hour because he left me with him. He picked out the middle visit that was a 20-minute visit and began to tell people this is the only visit I'd had. It's not only despicable, it doesn't bother me. Again, it doesn't bother me if someone has to say that. It tells me what they're like. But then he went on to say that Brady had had a whale of a time with his adoptive parents. That's the most crassly ignorant and his evidence for that was that Brady had told him he'd had a good time with his adoptive parents. Now, why these serial killers kill is because they cannot handle it. Their narcissism is so huge, they cannot handle it, that they went to parents that didn't love them, that abused them. And it is a big thing for one's ego. I have to handle it that my mother, shabby and low in so many ways that she was, rejected me. It's almost like I go and date a tramp and the tramp's like, nah, not interested. It's a blow to the ego. And what happens with these serial killers, they get adopted, as in the case of Ian Brady and Kenneth Bianchi. Their adoptive parents don't want them. Or sometimes they adopt them just for sexual abuse, for sexual purposes. So it's like they make them into prostitutes. I think in Brady's case, really clear that this is what they were used for. So this is what he was used for. And he acted that out onto other children. With Bianchi's case, it's clear that this is what happened. And what happens with these young men? They cannot handle it because they've got narcissism in them. They cannot handle that wound. They don't take it in. They project it out and they make others suffer. Bianchi made women suffer. It's my belief that because he targeted prostitutes and his adoptive mother was a prostitute, his real mother was a prostitute, that she let him go, basically. So she let him go into an adoptive family where he didn't have a nice time, but talked to him about it. And he says, my adoptive family adored me. Well, they would. He's king. He's he's golden child. Of course, he wasn't rejected. And when he talks about his prostitute mother who let him go, she loved me so much. She, yada, yada, yada. They cannot face it. This is what Alan Keeley hasn't grasped. And also, when these people speak to you, they speak with forked tongue. They're serial killers. They know people want to get inside their heads. They're not stupid. And it's giving. They don't want to give of themselves. They're not giving people. So when you engage with them, they give you everything that's nothing. And that's what they do. So you have to scramble through that everything is nothing to find the truths. And it's a job of reading between the lines constantly with them. I think I learned the most about who Brady was arguing with him. Out would come who he actually was. He actually wrote to an employer once of of mine, nationwide investigations, found out who the owner was. I was young as hell, and wrote to the owner and said that I was a prostitute. Um, I mean, it was horrific. It really, talk about the gossip went round that firm. Um, this is the ruthlessness. That was who Brady was, not the sort of trying to be kind person sending nice letters. They know that the press eventually get hold of these letters. They know that Alan Keeley is writing a book, so they give it the PR. The idea, just because he wrote to him for a long time, he knows the real Brady, is just the biggest joke on the planet. You have to have experienced that adoption that fails to feel what it incurs in you and how it messes with you. And it's often these narcissists that adopt. I mean, it takes a huge person to tell themselves that whilst being upset that you can't have your own child, that you have it in you as a woman to take another woman's child and look at it and say, that's my child. It takes a whole lot of woman, and there's not women out there that have got that ability. If you're very cushioned in life with massive wealth, like Angelina Jolie, I'm sure you can pull it off, but most people cannot pull it off. So it causes this thing. It causes this reaction, such as the Jeremy Bamber incident. Now, also Jeremy Bamber will say, "Oh, I loved my parents." Well, hang on. He battered his father with the other end of a shotgun. He shot his mother in the face, and yet he will insist that he loves them. And I'm pretty sure he tells himself that as well. So this is the way they crack on. So there's no point in sitting with a serial killer and asking them A, B, C, D. You won't get the truth. And back to my point about narcissists. The serial killer is the ultimate narcissist. Why they kill is that inability to face that rejection as a child. When all other children were being treated like baby Jesus, you were being treated like a piece of shit on the street. They can't handle it, and so it forms stored emotion of pain and anger that the ego, their giant ego, cannot see, and then it acts it out. So you can't keep that emotion down. It's like pressing a beach ball down. So it bursts out. I don't know why the Daily Mail gave credence to Alan Keeley. He's a fanboy of Brady. He was enamored of him. Brady is very hard to have a sustained relationship with because it's the darkness. So you have to have little breaks. Keeley didn't need a little break because he's not feeling the reality of who Brady actually is. He's somebody devoted to himself. He was highly broken. His ego couldn't take it. So rather than become a reservoir of evil, he slapped that evil onto others. Now, these serial killers are weak. They're weak because they can't tolerate reality. Such as in Kenneth Bianchi's case, his girlfriend went and got VD, came back, gave him VD, and when he said, "Hang on, I've got VD, how come?" And she had it. And she said, "Oh, I was raped." Now, well, she didn't go to the police. Sometimes, I didn't go to the police. I was a child. Sometimes I'm guessing women don't want to go to the police, but she'd come back from her trip rather jolly and buoyant. So, but he believed it, and he believed it, not because, what a good guy believing that. No, he believed it. His ego couldn't handle it. Why should my girlfriend want another man? She's got me. But he pushed it to one side, repressed it down with all the other anger he was pressing down over what happened to him as a child, and went out and murdered Yolanda Washington, a prostitute, to explode onto her and then go back to the girlfriend and carry on treating her, like she was a real sweetheart, rather than someone that actually didn't really respect him. So this is how these people carry on. And they're actually really dangerous if you don't know how to tolerate them. So Graham Johnson has done this to me because he wants to rise himself up. I was renowned on Fleet Street. I was called a genius. When Stephen Scott from the BBC met me, he said, now I meet the legend. So this is all attributed to me, but it hurts Graham because, oh, hang on, isn't the I am me? Well, no, the I am actually was me. But God had something in store for me. God didn't want me to have an ego about that. So when it came to 2009 and they got rid of anybody linked to any kind of investigations work, even though I was a journalist by that time, and I devoted my entire life from age 22, when I'd lived with various journalists, got training off various journalists, it crashed my entire life. It crashed my entire life. I tried to go back into the world of the spy, ex-MI6 agencies that I'd worked for before, but they were like, well, you're a journalist now. So they would get up to certain things and they didn't want a journalist sniffing around. So they feel once a journalist, always a journalist. So I wasn't welcome there, wasn't welcome to work for newspapers. And so overnight, I died a death. So I was applying for jobs at Tesco checkout, wasn't getting them. They don't want somebody that's, worked in such a high-powered industry. And they were like, what do you want here? We're scared of you, kind of thing. It's like, so I was just completely left out in the cold. And talking to the Daily Mail lawyers yesterday, they were like, did you get a phone call from the Mail after working for them for 10 years to say they didn't want you anymore? And so I said, no, just overnight you get treated like a non-person. It's rather like you go out with a boyfriend for 10 years and he thinks you're the best thing since sliced bread, and then suddenly he pretends he doesn't know you, and you're like, well, hang on, what did I do wrong? And, oh, we don't know you. And it was incredibly painful. My ego, that I suppose been called a genius all the time, and journalists not being able to work on their own stories, they had to ring me. I did feel sad for them sometimes, embarrassed for them, but I suppose at journalist training school it doesn't teach you how to investigate, whereas I'd worked for ex-intelligence and CID, so I knew how to do certain things, how to find things out, but they didn't know. And nothing to do with this cheesy stuff that other PIs have done. I was quite unusual. And nothing linked with what Graham Johnson says. I think a lot of the male journalists were nose put out of joint because it was more male stuff, thinking in that way. And I think a lot of them, even the Times journalists, had a go at me about a Real IRA story that he had done, that I corrected, that I said, I'll bring you down to Dundalk, you can speak to the Campbells. And he screamed at me, who do you think you are? And I think they were nose put out of joint. Certainly journalists in Northern Ireland, when I went over there, lied that they wanted me to help them and have dinner with me, but they just wanted to find out how come I was cleaning up with stories over there. I just had a knack for investigations work. I just had a knack for journalism. It was my superpower. It was my kryptonite. And most certainly never hurt anybody because I had been a victim of the press. So I was really sensitive to that, whereas people like Graham Johnson aren't sensitive. He's never been the victim of a crime. He's never been smeared over the front page of a front paper. I have. So having all that and then just being swept away as if you're a non-person and left in the gutter, and you're like, well, hang on, this was me, this is my life, this is who I am. And like, when it's nothing you've done, so you haven't fucked up, it's weird, it's so unfair, it's so hard to, I just couldn't get over it. And my ex Paul is like, you were on the floor since 2009, you haven't got up again. And I haven't got up again. And yes, I've had various jobs, but you know, they've been temping and, you know, stuff that hasn't suited me. And yeah, I haven't got off the floor. I haven't made proper living. I haven't got off the floor. We're in poverty, my son and I now. And I think you have to look at everything that it's God's will, even though, you know, terrible things can happen. How can I look at my rape as a child and say it's God's will? But this is what Muslims often do. They say, you know, it's God's will, it's the will of Allah. And I always think, how can they say that? But you have to look at it in that way, that everything is God's will, and this is like a video game. We're stuck inside, and I think for me, God wanted to get rid of my pride. I think that I was developing the pride of life, and that's not really what God wants. And going back to narcissism and narcissistic wounding, and you know, this Graham Johnson character has tried to re-narrate my life story, and cut out any of the glory, cut out any of my achievements, and the life risking stuff I did. And he didn't want me to do this recent TV program, and neither did the BBC. Oh, might that be a different story to the one we're telling? And I cried as I sat with the mail. I think they were a little bit shocked as I suddenly started sobbing. But all I have, living in poverty with mice and black mold, and yeah, all I've got really for my ego to not crumble in my current situation is the past. And this Graham Johnson is misnarrating my past. Oh, you were a small-time bitch that you just did this. You were a little fluffy woman, you sat home and you did this. And it's incredibly painful for me. So I sobbed and sobbed and cried and cried. They were quite shocked at the level, I suppose, of emotion. But it's broken me in half. And so what do you do about that? You know, I did the shamanic journey with that character, Johnson. And if you guys remember, I was told by the masters of the lower realms to forgive him, and that he did want to destroy me. But, you know, not for the fact of destroying me, it's to get at the Daily Mail, basically. You know, and I'm not supported by the Daily Mail. I mean, I would say, couldn't give a toss about me. So I'm just, you know, rubbish in the street here. So I've got no support. I'm still in this situation I'm in, which is incredibly painful. I mean, I have a landlord who said to me, I mean, the place is falling apart. The roof is falling in my son's room. There's mold in the broken roof that's hanging off. I was told by a decorator the roof could cave in at any point because there's moisture on the top. And when you go in there, it stinks of mold and mildew. And I've done my best with it. The bathroom window is broken, so you can't open it. And there's no release of moisture in there. There's no fan. I have to scrub the black mold off every day. I asked him to please mend the window. He said it needs a new one. And to mend the roof. And in the kitchen, all the drawers are broken, so the front of them is off. They're very old. The cooker I've got to cook on is, I don't know, that was a second-hand one from a charity. Our settee's charity. All the furniture we've got is charity. and there's mice. So this is what I live with daily. And it's, you know, I pray around it. But I said, you know, the landlord was supposed to fix the certain things, you know, like the ceiling in the bathroom is because of the black mold. It's just splitting, and the hallway and all this is very dank. And he looked round in it recently and said it needs decorating, and obviously the roof falling in needs mending. And my son keeps having nightmares about the roof completely falling in. And I said, you know, the black mold needs to be dealt with, though I scrub it and treat it with tea tree oil every day. And the window in the bathroom needs mending, and then the toilet flush doesn't flush, so I have to do it by hand, put on rubber glove and do it by hand. And he was supposed to fix these things, but he put the rent up. I can't afford that. I just can't afford that. And so I'm in a quandary over that. And then he said to me, I said, but what about the decorating? It's not been done, you know, and the roof fixed, it's fallen in. And he said to me, oh, I think I'll sell up. But if you want to stay there, you can live there without me doing any of the improvements. So I got that. He said, but if you do want me to fix the roof and fix the window in the bathroom, then I think I'll sell up, and you've got. And I read it, and I listened between all saying all of this Graham Johnson stuff about me, and I read it, and I said, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not. And I didn't. Okay, I did later. But yeah, I'm thinking, what's going on? So there's him, and that's not fair treatment. You know, he gets a really high rent for here, and it's, you know, it's pretty bad. Even outside, looks like a drug dealer den. My neighbour's apparently is a drug dealer or something, because the police come constantly. There was even a surveillance van out front waiting for him to come back. And yeah, we don't have to turn on Netflix. I mean, you know, they came 1 o'clock in the morning last week, and then again at 4 o'clock to try and jam me the door in. They shout when they come. So, and I was thinking, what is this? What does God want to teach me? Back to the point of the video about narcissistic abuse, how to deal with it. Now, this same landlord came to me one time. The window was broken, and this is a high rent place. And I said, oh, I've never been treated like this before. I wish I had have been. Then I might have told myself never to get myself into rented again. The window was broken in my bedroom. It wouldn't close. You can imagine in the dead of winter having a window that doesn't close. And I said, you know, we need to call somebody. I'll do it for you. You know, that was the way I had to do the ring up, find people to do the repairs. Anyway, he said, I'll fix it. So I got the feeling, I had this really strong intuition that he wouldn't be able to. Anyway, he arrived and started taping it up with duct tape. So he was covering this open window with duct tape, and so he had to put a lot of it on there. I mean, and I was watching this, and then he goes there, and it just looked like a squat, and I felt really, really, really bad. And he kind of did it in a sort of happy-go-lucky way, the same way he sent that letter to me that, you know, if you don't like it, I'm not going to fix the roof, I'm not going to fix the window not being able to open. If you don't like it, you move, and I'll sell up. I sent an email going, thank you. And what else could I say? It's a threat in a way. Shut up or get out. And I'm not in a position to move right now. So it was the same position as with the black duct tape. So I was in a really bad space, and I didn't know what to do, because sometimes we're in a position where you're thwarted by these people. As regards Graham Johnson saying to things to Doreen Lawrence, and I think this will come out in the wash, because there's the there's the other investigator involved that he told to go and do a what-if scenario, and then presented that to Doreen Lawrence, which, you know, I mean, you have to be careful with somebody that's suffered like she has. I mean, I don't think they get that either. I spoke to the BBC about that, and I don't think these men realise the pain involved in losing his son and the gaping wound it leaves. They just don't. They haven't been careful around her or respectful. So she's been used. And I think Sienna Miller was used too. And I think they're used because they're women. Sienna Miller wasn't told the truth about what happened, because the truth would mean not only it's a far more shocking story, she would have had more compensation. And also it might have revealed the evil, but sometimes I think these people work hand in glove. Actually, I do. And so these other women are being abused as well, just as much as I am. And by men, actually. So, and treated like, it's disrespectful. It's like, you're a woman, so you stand over there. Men are fighting right now. You stand over there, and if we want to use you in any way, we'll tell you this to get you angry, and then we'll manipulate you and tell you this, and this is half the story. In fact, it's not even true, but we'll tell you this. We want you to move there. You're a doll. Remember, you're a woman. This is how these men crack on. It's very narcissistic and abusive. And I thought, what can I do about this, Graham Johnson? I mean, the Daily Mail, they don't care about me. They care about themselves. I mean, so they're not going to say, well, don't worry, Christine. You know, because they could have done a story about this. They could have done a story about me, but they haven't. So they don't care. And they don't care that they used me for years and years and years and then said goodbye. I was a journalist by then, much bylined in the Sunday Times. I could have been given a job, but, you know, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter about me. So I'm on my own in this, squished between two giants, battling out over money, really. And how do I deal with it? So this is back to the point of the video. I hope you guys listening need that. This is what I want to share. How did I deal with the duct tape? The duct tape over the window. He just left, and I was looking at it, you know, and I thought, hang on, I'm a woman, you know, I'm a good-hearted woman. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to struggle to pay the rent and then look up, oh, you're in a squat, bitch. You know, suddenly it felt like I was in a squat. And, you know, landlords are supposed to, you know, take care of the property. And now I'm getting the same message. And, you know, I walk into my son's room and see the roof falling in. And it just looks horrific. He's tried to stick it up with sellotape, so it looks even bloody worse now. And I smell the mildew. And it makes me think that I've really failed as a human being to give him something better. And it does go back to my rape as a child, because it meant that I couldn't form relationships with men. And I was attracted to rapists. Again, I haven't been able to come out and be honest about that, where you can get healing around it. As soon as you open your mouth about that, other women bark at you. Oh, you're a bad person. I'm attracted to a good man. Yeah, you must be evil yourself. Oh, it's nothing to do with Stockholm Syndrome, is it? No, absolutely nothing. Anyway, so, and actually, I have this lawyer who I think is going to go for my old children's home and perhaps the Catholic Church, who said, you were trying to unpick the lock, so that's why you go back to men like that. You're trying to unpick their lock to find out why. If you find out why, you can heal yourself, but actually it doesn't work like that. Obviously, no, it doesn't work like that. If I find out about why Kenneth Bianchi had to abuse and rape women, does it help me? Well, it doesn't really. I suppose in some ways finding out that I do believe they were possessed by entities, in some ways it helps me to see that when my mother whipped me with a bamboo handle of her feather duster, that she was possessed, and that when my father did rape me, he was possessed. I suppose it does help in a certain way, but you don't really get your life back. You still have the wound. And the wound is exacerbated by someone like my landlord treating me in that way. Because I look at my son's room and I see that, and it makes me feel, well, Christine, you've got this man. He's the landlord. You're giving him a lot of money each month. He's supposed to give you something. Well, it's not working like that. Well, hang on, there's Graham Johnson. You helped him with ABCD. He's supposed to go and tell victims of the press that you helped him. All I got was a lousy titter, which the enemy clearly didn't see. Now, Doreen Lawrence has been lied to that I'm a badass when I helped Hacktov. And I met up with Graham Johnson just this summer. And Bruce Goodison from Sky and James Hanning. All summer I was with Graham Johnson in Richmond Town Centre. But all that isn't told to Doreen Lawrence, which actually is abuse to her. You don't keep people in the bloody dark. But they want her to hate me because, more powerful, more of a battle, more, look, Daily Mail, you've upset your... Well, that's the Daily Mail who's upset them. That's not me. But they think, this will work. It's a lack of IQ, if you ask me, to react in that way. It doesn't work. The same as the threats to Paul Hawkes, who he revealed. I mean, how has that worked? I mean, honey collects more than abuse. You could have easily said to Paul Hawkes, oh, you're a great investigator, yada, yada, you this. Paul Hawkes had been turned over by the press, by the Sunday Times, when he worked for Insight. So he didn't like the press. So if you'd have gone and been a little bit charismatic, a little bit nicer, you probably would have Paul Hawkes on side. But all this, abusing, and I know why it's done. It's, you look the good, cool investigators. Yeah, Paul Hawkes didn't say something to you. No, you're investigating. The investigators. Who's the real James Bond here? And I noticed that when I was dating Jim Jones and went along to an investigations agency, and he took me in the car, and I went in, came out, and he spat hatred about private investigators. And I realized then that journalists and private investigators, they don't get on because it's like a battle. Who's the real James Bond here? And so Graham Johnson is fighting to be seen at the end of the story as you're the real top investigator. It's really sad because it's not going to work out that way. Because you can't fight like that. It just doesn't work. You don't get the universe on your side when you fight like that. The universe starts then to operate against you to form the universe doesn't like a guest dot. So you give out negative, it's not going to come back with positive. It's going to come back with more negative against you to achieve balance. This is why serial killers get caught, not because the entity that's possessing them, it only gets a certain amount of time to possess them, because the universe balances out so it can be darkness, then the universe will step in and drive them, it will push the entity out and then drive the serial killer puppet to get caught, to do something really bizarre and get caught, because it needs a balance, because this is a dualistic universe and it has to have balance in it. So by lying, by trying to win through sneaky, creepy means, putting other people down, it creates something that needs then to right itself. So it won't be, I'm going to ride off into the sunset and everyone's going to think I'm a real cool James Bond. It's not going to rock and roll like that. Anyway, going back to my son's bedroom, and I go in there and you choke on the black mildew. We've got mouse traps all around, still not working on the mice situation. And I thought about all this, and I thought about what the landlord said to me: if you don't like it, you can move out. And the Graham Johnson thing, saying things to Doreen Lawrence that I supposedly said that weren't true, that I'm a dark person, and I'm not. I thought to myself, what can I do about this? Because it's two men And then with women, of course, there's the original wound from my father and mother, narcissistic wound. These two individuals, it feels like they're biting on my wound. Um, because how can I have pride if this individual is going around gossiping about me, telling people that I'm a devil? What can I do about that? I mean, I can do a vlog, but, you know, is there thousands of people listening? Well, no. The Daily Mail aren't going to help me. They could write my story, but they didn't give a shit about me. Why would they? I worked for them for 10 years. They were just, oh, who the fuck are you? I'm the one that's been getting you front pages for all these years. And it's like, well, who the fuck are you? Goodbye. So they don't care about me. So I'm left totally on my own. But who have I got? I've got God. And God is the Most High. God has supernatural power. So God is more powerful than these individuals. So what do I do? When the duct tape scenario happened, that was last winter, perhaps the winter before, I was making oils with the idea of selling a mix, because I studied how oils are used, essential oils are used for depression. And I read a lot about it. The best book out there is Valerie Wormwood, by far. So I tested all the different essential oil mixes for depression. Now, one really hit me, and it was amazing. It just, you have to just inhale it, and it's ba-bang. It lifts you up a frequency really, really high, because depression is a low frequency, and it just drags you out of it. So I thought, oh, this is awesome. And then I started to add like a soothing balm to it, and oh, it was amazing. And then I discovered the power of jasmine as well. So I was adding all these things to it, and I called it He's Hurt You Again. And whenever I had that kind of abuse, narcissistic abuse, and it could be called She's Hurt You Again, I have to think of a proper name for that oil. When my ex, for example, said, you know, go out for a drink with him, well, not a drink, a drive or whatever, he would inevitably make me feel like poo. Telling me you're a loser, you haven't got up off the floor since the press dumped you, what's wrong with you, you loser, you put on weight, you look ugly, you know, all these things. And I would come back after going out with him, feel really bad, and I wouldn't know what to do. And it was the same feeling as when, you know, the landlord put the black duct tape on the window as mending it. It was still open, by the way. The duct tape was supposed to join with the first bit and the window, and oh man, it was still freezing. And I just didn't know what to do about the feeling, the same as my ex, which you can say it was self-inflicted, but he would always be really charming and really nice until I was in his car, and then it used to start. And I have this mechanism where I forget abuse and forgive, because I had to do it when I was stuck in a house where I couldn't get away and had to. So I deal with it, and I deal with bullying in various ways. You know, you have to acquiesce to it, and then I'd get my own back. I'd go in my brother's room and break all his FX models just surreptitiously. That's how I dealt when I was bullied on Fleet Street. I wasn't, you know, you can't say no to these people. I dealt with it. Oh, okay, I will. And I dealt with it in that way, like breaking off the propellers off his FX models, because, you know, when you have grown up that way, it's pretty difficult to react as a normal person would to bullying. And Fleet Street is a place of bullying. And so I felt that I was being bullied by Graham Johnson, coming out and saying all these things and trying to be top dog. It's all about being top dog, if you ask me. And I was, you know, and the whole thing about the landlord. I think behind that, because I'm feeling it, you could say, well, it's just someone who wants to save money. I get the feeling it's because I'm a woman, and he wants to, you know, I don't know, maybe his wife isn't being very fair with him. And I get the feeling, yeah, my wife isn't very fair with me, but I've got a woman, and I don't have to. I know she's living in squalor, and she's paying me a lot of money for it, and she can't move right now, so she's got to just suck on that. So I thought, well, what can I do about these two these two guys. What can I do about that? And it was the same feeling with the duct tape, and it was the same feeling from my original narcissistic wound bleeding as a child. There's nowhere to go, nowhere to run, no one's going to help you. You just got to stick in it, and it's like the feeling of descending into shit. It feels like that. So the first thing was this oil. I made up some and I inhaled it to lift my frequency. And I've used a mix, and it's best to use a mix. And also, if you haven't got the wherewithal to make a mix, and I am going to try and make them and sell them at one point if I can get labels to stick on the damn, which I have got labels, I just don't like them. You can use jasmine, and just use jasmine from Neal's Yard, because a lot of tisserand and aromatherapy, or they're not strong, they haven't got the vibration, and they're just a total waste of money. Neal's Yard aren't more expensive than they are, but they are good oils. They've got the kick that you need. You need it for the vibration. And I got jasmine oil. It's very expensive. It's about £30 for a tiny bit. I used a lot after the duct tape incident. I poured it in a saucer. I poured on almond oil, more of it, about 3 times as much. I stirred it with my finger, and I anointed my body, especially my heart, especially my throat, especially the top of my head, and then down my body, my sacral chakras, all the chakras, and palms of my hands, bottoms of my feet. And then I went to sleep, and I woke up, and it's like something dropped off me. It was like I wasn't immersed in the poo anymore. It was like it dropped away. And it was like, that's his problem, that he would come somewhere and do something like that to a person. That's him. It's not saying anything about my worth. It's not a message from the universe to me. You're a fucking sad bitch. We don't care about you. Nothing to do with God. It's somebody treating somebody badly that's to do with them. And so the poo dropped away, and I felt okay, and I dealt with it. Yeah, I dealt with it. I actually ended up mending the goddamn thing myself. It shuts. It's shut now, but you can't open it, but at least it's shut. Going back to, but there's another window in my bedroom, luckily, that I can open, but that one is closed. Going back to the current situation with the landlord, the current situation with Graham Johnson, just sitting in that poo, and I'm already in a bad situation. So the two things, it started to feel overwhelming, because I felt like it was on both sides. It is on both sides, so it's coming on top on both sides. So you have to ask, what is the universe trying to tell me about this situation? And the universe, because I'm studying counseling at college, I was reading some books on, one of them is called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. It's a must read for everybody. It tells about the Buddhist way, but he sums it up in a Western way, in a simple way. It's hard to understand Buddhist writing about. It's just hard. It's just, you read it and you're like, what? But Singer explains it in a very basic way. You start to listen to your inner voice. So when your inner voice is talking to you, when you're driving, it might come up with, oh, you've got to go into the Tesco, remember, to get those, to get those baby wipes and stuff like that. As you hear it, you turn and you face it and you say, who is that speaking? If I am listening, I can't be the one speaking. You can't do the two things at the same time. So you turn and you ask it, who is that speaking? And then you do that every time you hear that inner voice. Then you keep doing it and you start to ask, who am I? Who am I? So the one listening, you sit in that and you say, who am I? And then you start to realize more and more that you are not the voice. I actually started to listen to my inner voice so much more clearer, and it sounded like a woman that I'd met years ago, that I knew quite well, that I didn't even like. They were a petty snob. And I thought, why is Liz inside my head. It's strange. And you start to realize that that voice doesn't even sound like you. And a lot of the time it's coming out with bullshit. And you kind of mistakenly think that it's you, it's your thoughts. Well, we are not our thoughts are unreal. So what the hell's going on? So I started to really look at that voice and noticed that it seemed to come as if from a dark cave. So I pictured the dark cave. Then whenever the my thoughts started to think themselves, I started to let them blow to one side, and I stayed in the observer, looking at the voice, listening to it, and let it blow off to one side. And it's almost like I let it speak, don't smother it, let it just blow off to one side when it comes out the cave. And almost as you hear it, imagine its words forming on ticker tape. So as it blows to one side, it's like on ticker tape. And it's just blowing off, and it's speaking. The speaking is going onto the ticker tape. So you can hear it, but you start to silence it and have control of your own mind. And so that goes off to one side. And so when you have news of somebody abusing you in a narcissistic manner, what you do, you hear it, you feel it, you recognize it's painful, such as me getting the letter from the landlord, like, I'm not going to decorate that place, I'm not going to mend your son's room, I'm not going to mend the window in the bathroom. You've got to suck that up, you skanky little bitch, because that's where you deserve to live, in somewhere that's dirty, skanky, not dirty, I clean it, but skanky, and it's falling apart because you're a low-life scumbag, and low-life scumbags deserve to live somewhere bad, don't you know? Well, he hasn't said that. He's merely said to me, I'm not going to fix it up, but I'm going to still take your money. So that's what he said to me. Now, that's painful. So you can feel that. But what normally happens, people then go into suffering. But the suffering isn't from reality. The suffering is what your mind is telling you about the situation. So I might go into, my mind is telling me, he thinks I'm this, and what am I, a lowlife that I don't deserve to be treated well? But this is all my brain chattering away. So what happened when I got the letter from the landlord? My first response was to cry, and then I said to myself, why are you crying? It's just reality. Just accept it. Don't fight against it. Don't label it. Don't try and see, well, what does it mean? What's it telling me about myself and who I am? I mean, I just let that thought, those thoughts, that inner voice, just come out of the cave and then go off to one side. And I could feel it was very busy. It was getting overheated, but I didn't sit in that overheated. I inhaled my essential oil mix to bring up my frequency. I didn't want to be connected with his frequency. He's in a lower frequency. I don't need to merge with that or connect with it. So I sniffed the oil as a little reminder. I anointed myself. I did something really loving with myself. I reminded myself that I was a divine child of God. I have God inside me. Nobody can diminish that. Nobody can diminish God. Certainly not another human being by their words or actions or deeds. And I just let that voice go off to one side. Well, I just stayed as the observer. Then I meditated over the situation. And when you meditate, and when you stay in the observer and away from the chattering mind and your so-called thoughts that aren't actually even real, God knows how they're created and why our mind does that, but it's an old thing. We don't need it now. This is a new ascension period we're going into. And I sat and I meditated in front of my Shiva statue and my Buddha statue, and I lit candles and I burned incense, and I didn't think about the situation. I just let it dwell and I meditated. And suddenly everything fell away. All the poo and the shit that I felt was being smeared on me, all the judgments, all the labels, all the feeling bad about it, and I just accepted. This is how it is today. This is what's happening. Didn't label it good or bad. I just sat in it, and I felt God come in, and suddenly everything felt easy. It felt as if it was a long, long way off. It felt like they weren't people biting my narcissistic wound. I didn't even have a narcissistic wound. I was a spirit in a body with bone, blood, and flesh. And God was there. God comes in at that point when you meditate. God comes in with a really golden, blissful light, which is just pure love. You get to feel the pillar of light coming from the higher dimensions, filling your body, filling your heart, giving you this most awesome otherworldly feeling of power. And everything drips away. It's just a situation, and that you have to move through. You don't even have to deal with it. When you meditate, God gives you all these remedies. God's waiting there to hand you remedies. He just wants you to stop listening to your own little mouse mind that doesn't know anything, that's going to get into all kind of dramas with these other mouse minds. You need to rise up out of your own mouse mind, rise up out of other people's mouse minds, and go into that higher power, so much higher. And when you dwell there, you can just see that you don't even have to do anything. You just have to open your heart to receive what's going on in this present moment. If it's painful, you accept the pain, but you don't move into suffering. That's just what the mind wants you to do. When you engage with that chattering mind, that's the suffering. No, you let that blow on its ticker tape to one side. You stay in the observer where it's peaceful. And you open your heart as far as it can. The more you can open your heart, the more God will start to come in, and the more you won't have suffering in your life. There will be pain, but there won't be suffering. And God will send down all manner of remedies, all manner of antidotes. God will even start to bring people into your life that will help you, to send you on the pathway to opportunities that will rise you up out of your situation. God can do that because God's supernatural. He has loads of remedies written down on his notepad in front of him. You just need to access it, and you'll never access it while you're in your own monkey mind. You just won't. Your own mouse mind, your own animalistic mind. It's very low. It's very low mind. You have to come out of that animal mind and go into the higher, go into the divine. You have a part of you that's divine. It's that watcher, that observer, that one that can turn to that monkey mind and listen to it and think, hang on, that doesn't even sound like me. It's not you. I don't know what it is. God knows what that is, but I don't let mine rule me. It's not even me, for God's sake. But you have to sit in that place where you still yourself. Sometimes I don't want to go down and sit in front of my Shiva statue. I don't want to light candles. I normally have a glass of water there. I don't feel like drinking water. I'd rather have a coffee with sugar in. I don't want to do it. It seems boring. But I know after I've done it, I will certainly feel better. I will certainly feel messaged to by God. How can we get any information from him if we don't sit there and try and ring him on the telephone? And ringing God on the telephone is when we just sit silent. We just sit silent. Start to feel your feet, your toes, and then just leave yourself a little. That's all you have to do. Just 10 minutes a day. You can even set an egg timer. Say, right, for 10 minutes I'll do this. And I might be bored shitless, but I'll do it. Because this is calling God on the phone. And God is the only one that will give you antidotes. Other people with their mouse minds won't be able to give you any antidote. And when you're right in the middle of being dealing with people, let's say, that are lacking in empathy, lacking in kindness, lacking in compassion, and are all out for themselves, you don't have to start feeling bad about them. You don't even have to start judging them. You can forgive them. That's the best way you can. You can forgive them. You can say to yourself, they don't know what they do, which is what Jesus said on the cross. Father,